turn now to the NGO sector because we have Andrea.
But there is gender equality. Look, there are three. Hi, by the way. Nice to meet you. Where's your microphone? Oh. Maybe ladies swap. This is working. I didn't expect that. I think we're already a little bit behind time, so maybe we should just start. Are we waiting for someone? It doesn't seem like. Hi, everyone. It's a great pleasure seeing you all here today. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. And I would like to welcome you to the most important panel of the 2 days. Why it is the most important panel? Because we're at the Prespa Forum Dialogue. And here we are talking about the Prespa Agreement. And in 2 days, we'll be celebrating the 5th anniversary of signing the Prespa Agreement between Bulgaria and Greece. So what can be more important, than trying to reflect and see what has moved on, what are the lessons learned, and just reflect and discuss how can we move forward with this. So many people, I was actually a speaker in a session before, in a panel, we were discussing foreign malign influence, and there was maybe 1/10 of the people here, so I don't know, should I be happy or should I be sad? I don't know, but anyways, welcome you all. As we're already running behind time, let's just cut all my talking. Oh, by the way, I'm Vanya Petrova. I'm a senior analyst from the Center of Study for Democracy in Sofia, Bulgaria, and I'm also an assistant professor at Fudan University in China, Shanghai. And let me just briefly introduce our dear friends here. I'm not even feeling very appropriate to introduce them because I think you should have lived under a rock so that you don't know who these people are. But okay, just for the protocol, here we go. This is Ambassador Einhorst, and she's a Dutch diplomat and European civil servant. And she's the director of for Europe and Central Asia at the European External Action Service in Brussels, Belgium. Ladies first. Sorry, I will leave you for the end. So there we have Radmila Shekerinska. She's, as everyone here knows, a former Minister of Defense of the Republic of North Macedonia, and she's also currently now the Vice President of the European Social Democrats. And last but not least, we have one gentleman here for the sake of gender equality. Not only. This is Mr. Ali Ahmeti. Everyone knows him, I'm sure, but I need to say he's a famous politician in the Republic of North Macedonia, and he's something fell down. Anyways, he's the leader of Democratic Union for Integration. There we go. Also, now it's almost 1. We have time slot until 1:30, so please be as brief as you can. If you want, we can start with some introductory remarks. I'm sure that every one of you wants to open my microphone. That's good. I'm sure that you want to say something as an introduction, so let's start with the ladies. I introduced you first, so let's start with the Minister.
Good morning or good afternoon now. It's great to see everyone here in Struga. 2 years ago we were discussing the Ohrid Framework Agreement. Now we are discussing the Prespa Agreement. But we are neither in Ohrid nor in Prespa, but in Struga. I'm sure nobody complains. Thank you for inviting me, and I'll try to be very brief on the issue of lessons learned. And probably I won't be as direct when it comes to prospects, because I think that it is difficult now to look ahead, not only in terms of Prespa agreement, but some of the other political developments, especially vis-a-vis the widened European family by 2030. So as someone who has participated in the negotiations of these both difficult political agreements, but very much involved in the Prespa agreement, I have just few things to say. The first one is that the only way these kinds of difficult agreements that touch issues like identity, like dignity, the only way that they can ever turn from theory into practice or from a wish into a political reality is that if they try not to solve all the problems. I mean, the open issues between North Macedonia and Greece were not fully solved by the Prespa agreement, but both sides agreed to make agreements on everything that was feasible and to leave certain things with the strategic ambiguity that exists in all agreements of this kind. So I believe that it was a smart strategy both with the Ohrid agreement and with the Prespa agreement. And practically this has made them feasible. The second issue, or the second lessons that I got from that, is a very loose paraphrase of Tolstoy. You know, every unhappy families are unhappy in their own way. Well, if in this reading of Tolstoy, every big conflict, especially between states or nations, is difficult in its own way. Every conflict looks impossible to solve because of different reasons. But every solution shares one same characteristics, and this is domestic political will. And I think that the big difference, the trigger in making what seemed to be a frozen conflict in the Balkans, one of the many, like the conflict between Macedonia and Greece in that time, depends on finding the right political actors that are actually willing to challenge the status quo. And today, many people say, when we discuss issues with Bulgaria, actually the problems with Bulgaria are more difficult than the problems with Greece ever were. I disagree. Because 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 10, 5 years ago, this looked like an impossible problem to solve. And if you analyze public opinion, I think 12% of the citizens of North Macedonia agreed that a compromise with Greece is feasible, likable, or potential even. And I believe that the big lesson from the Prespa agreement is that we don't elect politicians to serve as expensive mirrors. You look at the opinion and you just reflect the public opinion. You know, you could buy cheaper mirrors for this. You expect that the politicians will really look beyond what is currently the mood in the country, hopefully with the view of the future. You know, today, probably if you ask the question whether Prespa agreement is popular, you will get the same divide in the society. But as they say, make them and they will come. The compromise was made, lots of criticism, lots of attacks, but have you heard lately too many opposition leaders, you know, claiming that they will oppose the Prespa agreement, that they will try to nullify it? I haven't seen one, neither here in North Macedonia nor in Greece. And that's, I think, the big proof for the success of the Prespa agreement, that even those that have been the harsh critics are now at least silent. And this is usually in politics as good as it gets. I don't think that we should go beyond that. The fourth lesson in my mind is that one big Balkan myth has been busted. There was a story, especially true 10 years ago, that, you know, when it comes to big identity, difficult nationalist issues, you should turn to the autocrats and the nationalists, and they will solve the problem. Why? Because they control the narrative, they control the public mood, they can drive the population towards a compromise. Well, let us be honest. How many big breakthroughs have been made by nationalists and autocrats these days? We have seen negative breakthroughs. We haven't seen really positive breakthroughs. So I really believe that Prespa agreement reminded us that it is the peacemakers that make peace more often than the autocrats and the nationalists. And that even in spite of some public resistance initially, you know, the public can see that there are benefits. Today, when security is back on the agenda, I don't think that too many people think about what would have happened in North Macedonia if we did not secure ourselves as a NATO member state. And this would have been impossible without the Prespa agreement. So I think to analyze a country that 20 years ago has used NATO's mission to bring back peace and to see it now as a NATO member state, that's quite an accomplishment. And this is one of the big wins of the Prespa agreement. Allow me to finish with just one question mark when it comes to prospects. You know, the Prespa agreement was not only about let us be better neighbors. It was about this, but it was let us design a better future for North Macedonia. And NATO membership was the big plus. I think if it was not for the NATO invitation 5 years ago, the Prespa agreement would have been a stillborn. It would have never turned into a successful agreement. It was the NATO invitation that saved it. But for Prespa agreement to be alive and kicking, we do need the EU context that was always part of the deal. So when I look at the question over there at the big panel, widened European family by 2030, I really think we need to miss the question mark and to say that this is mission possible. Many years ago, a famous historian, when talking about the First World War, said that the First World War proved that what was considered to be the Eastern question turned out to be the Western question. And then 10 years ago, Rupnik, a really good Balkan expert, said that what used to be a Balkan question will prove to be a European question. I really think that what happens with the Balkans, what happens with North Macedonia, will greatly influence how the EU is perceived. Is it a reliable partner? Is it a reliable friend, colleague? And I know that many people within the European Union have worked very hard to make the EU part of the Prespa equation equally rewarding. I really think that since EU foreign policy was built in the Balkans, I really believe that the next big success of EU foreign policy should be in the Balkans. And the goals should not be non-ambitious. I think they should be ambitious. I think 2030 is ambitious yet fully possible. And I really think that the Prespa agreement in that case could serve as a real reminder and a real catalyst for also other less willing political leaders to make the necessary compromise for a peaceful and prosperous future. Thank you.
Thank you. Very, very concise, to the point, and also with really nice metaphors. So I really, really loved it. And I cannot agree with you more. I firmly believe that the common denominator of the Western Balkan countries' economies is their vulnerabilities, which are basically kindled by state capture and governance gaps. But there is silver lining. Especially now after the invasion of Ukraine, there is momentum, and now is the time. I fully agree with you. We should get rid of that question mark and have an exclamation mark instead. As I'm keeping the ladies first principle, okay, no ladies first principle. The floor is yours then. Mr. Ahmeti, the floor is yours. But she said that you should go ahead.
Faleminderit. Përshëndetje për të gjithë pranishmit.
Thank you very much. Greetings to all. Very often it is announced that Macedonia, North Macedonia, is a model for resolving an issue's problems, no matter if they're regional or in other countries out of this region of Western Balkans. I would like to outline that this success came as a result of the communication, cooperation, together with the international community, together with the two peacemaker centers and builders of the peace in Washington and Brussels, and also the centers that are members, but also with success are having the policies, actually peacemaking policies like Germany, France, Great Britain, Italy, and the Scandinavian countries, Netherlands, with which we had, and we have excellent communication and cooperation, because we have set goals, what we actually would like to achieve. Our first goal was the peace, stability, and security for our country. Our next goal was zero problems with the neighbors and with our counterparts. Of course, when you have the problems with your neighbors, of course you cannot have the economic development and the prosperity of your country. So they're your neighbors, they are not so far away. The next goal was how shall we integrate, how can we attach and how can we start communicating with the countries that are democratic, not with the countries that are led by autocrats, because we decided that we should be the country where that will be ruled by the law and the rights. And we achieved this. And I believe that this achievement has to be shared with the international community. Now, the Western Balkans does not have an alternative. We don't have another alternative except the one becoming a member of the EU. We are witnessing that here there are intersected a lot of interest, different interest from the East, and each influenced beside the influence of the sun cannot be useful for us. And that is not occasional that very high circles are interested in Macedonia not to be stable, not to be peaceful, and to create insecurity, because each development, each bad development in the Republic of North Macedonia could have an implications and implications in the countries with which we are neighbors. One remarkable achievement is that political forces in this country have the correct direction. They are always for the advancement processes, and especially for becoming closer to the accession of the EU. And all of them are on the side of the EU, but also there are some that are making just certain tactics about their declarations. What are they following? In that sense, each tactics that are made, but that is done by the political party that is currently performed by the biggest opposition political party, VMRO, and we must express that is not serve nobody, especially not to the opposition party. I would like to make any comparison between the VMRO and the political party Levica, because they have certain program and certain statements to which they are held, and they are delivering and going toward their political programs implementation. And I believe that the VMRO shall be much more clear in in that sense, not to make a politics with the double standards. Because during the day to be for the rule of law and becoming a EU member, and by night to build the politics and making the coquettes and to coquette with another political party that are not favorizing this issue. I was very close to this. I was very closely involved in resolving these issues for many issues, and I'm also involved in this issue about resolving the problem with Bulgaria. And I believe and I'm convinced that this is incorporation of the Bulgarian minority in the Macedonian constitution shall be the normal and the only way to resolve the issue, because this can be seen as a defeat in our continuous unresolved issue, and this not to be seen is so much delay in resolving the simple issue as we did it in resolving our issue with Greece. I believe that there are progressive forces within the political party VMRO to make a good understanding of the and to sense the right moment to make this one, because in November we have to have the second intergovernment conference with the EU, and because the screening finalizes in November together with the Albanian screening. We hope that this will happen. Because we do not have any other alternative. In order to have the stable Balkan, safe and stable, we have to make promotion and advancement in resolving the problems in the Balkans, especially because I am in this country, I live in this country, I have my food supplied by this country, and I saw that there have been a lot of disturbing situations in this country, a lot of different wars, and there have been a lot of sacrifices and blood around the countries, the issues and the situations that have not been between the other country, but we saw that France and Germany that have sat down and made peace between themselves for the advancement of both nations. In that sense, Balkans have to come to the peace, and those two countries can help us to resolve these issues with the ages hostility between the countries. Nothing can be achieved, but the countries shall be seen. For example, situation between Serbia and Kosovo can also be a good example, the resolved issue between Germany and France as an example to make it, to solve it. I believe that for resolving the issue shall be interest of both countries because the cooperation and understanding between those countries is a key. Will shall be expressed by both in both sides, but Europe can also not be in peace without resolving the issues in Kosovo. Problems of the Kosovo and Serbia, because we are not, and we don't have so much space and the time, and we cannot be so comfortable toward the space that covers a million kilometers, and compare how big is Russia or how big is China or how big is India. But the United EU is not just, it has 500,000 million citizens. 500 million citizens. It is much bigger in the territory because this country has the forces and the powers, not only in the human capacities, but also in terms of the economic resources. Together with the Western Balkans, EU will become more competent, more stable, contrary to the difficulties that it can face in the future. It is not by accident when Alexander Dugin has moved through the whole Balkans and then in Macedonia, he made in Macedonia the political party with the pro-Russian politics. We have supported and we are supporting the fight for freedom, and Ukraine is now fighting for survival, and it fights against the super force, and we're sure that Ukraine will win, but Russian will not be an empire, but it will be a country without Ukraine. We are sure that the example of the Ukraine will be followed by other countries in order to be independent, to be free, and to be dignified countries. And thank you. Thank you very much. And through me, all your friends, and with all your friends in Brussels, we shared a lot of joint moments, moments of sorrow, moments of happiness. Together with Brussels and together with our allies, we came as winners. Thank you very much for your presence here. Thank you to Ms. Shekerinska, because we were working together for more than 20 years, and I believe that we will continue our cooperation as long as we become members of the EU and after that.
Thank you. That's now a great transition to our last speaker. I think you can be now the cherry on top of the cake.
Thank you.
We have around 10 minutes, and maybe if we have a few minutes left, we can open the floor to some questions. Maybe I'm a little bit over-optimistic.
I'll be brief because I think it's also good to take some questions, but thank you very much also for your last words, Mr. Ahmeti. It was, you know, in diplomacy there are a few highlights you can perhaps look back on, and then I think for our institutions, European Union, and the people who at the time were very closely involved with you and many also here in the room, this is definitely a highlight of the work. And we have, I believe, 3 lessons we learned from the Prespa agreement. The first one is, as an international community, as European Union, you cannot impose a text, an agreement on leaders if they do not want to. And I will not go into all the anecdotes and the details. I think this is up to the leaders to share with you. But I happened to be there when I literally heard from the leaders say, we are going to do this. We are ready to make an agreement. That's where it starts, and already the minister said it. But that very strong will, at possibly very high political cost, they didn't know at that time, but there was political cost to this, against public opinion, so really helping to change public opinion, but very strategically taking the countries forward, and that's not just North Macedonia, it was on both sides. That had so much courage. I just want to repeat it again, because in every successful agreement you see, it is really because the leaders wanted, asked for it, and ready to pay the price for it. The second lesson, and I worked very closely with High Representative Mogherini, and we saw all the negative vibes coming around when it was clear that the leaders wanted to start in earnest the negotiations. I mentioned Russia, I say it out here. Russia was definitely, absolutely not in favor of seeing anything possible on the ground in this country. And despite all the attempts made to sabotage, it did not work. And why did it not hold? Because there was unity on this level, unity at different levels. We worked extremely close with all the partners, but also with Washington. And you know this very well. And that actually helped sort of fencing off those who definitely at all price did not want to see an agreement taking place. And I think that's what we see today, also within the European Union, how important unity really is and standing together for the same cause. And the third element, I think, and it was also mentioned by Mr. Ahmeti, the timing is so crucial. And not to leave too much space and too much time. Once you have sorted out the riddle, as we called it at the time, the riddle about what words to use, the famous Article 7, everything around it, then, you know, don't leave too much time to sort of let it unravel again. Keep politically, keep the voices, the direction, all the people who want to work to make this happen together. I apologize, I give you my back, but I try to turn around a bit. It's not a fishbowl, by the way. It feels very much like you're high up from somewhere speaking. But the point is really the timing is crucially important. And when we see now that there are processes ongoing where you try to nurture an agreement and push it through, as we say, push the baby out, sometimes too much time is basically wasted on a lot of distractions. Because that's another, you need to stay course. You cannot be distracted left, right, and center by different crises, whether they're small, whether they're big, in order to achieve your goal. So I feel personally very honored that we could help here and there with a few words. People matter very, very much, and this was the moment of the right people working together in a very focused way, but also in a very discreet way. Initially, it was necessary. It was not needed because you needed to have this super confidentiality, but you needed to have some space to work out the differences. And still there was the transparency, that necessary transparency that went with afterwards, and that is very much needed for agreements. Today this is, I suspect, more difficult to do than 5 years ago, but still it's quite important that the leaders, once they have made a decision, that they have the political space and the space also around them to have the confidentiality. So as the European Union, we want to see this, and you will see this, Minister, this evening. I will disclose a little bit what I hope the President of the European Council will say, to delete the "im" and to say possible. For us in European Union, this is widening Europe is no longer about an if. It's really about how to do it. And how to move as fast as possible, most efficient as possible, because this is what we have been waiting for too long now. I'll close here.
Thank you. I think we have 5 minutes, so let's just open the floor, and if you have any questions, yeah, go ahead. You are the first one, so go ahead. Is there a microphone? Okay, the microphone is coming to you. But next question. Maybe just say a few words, just present yourself, and
Yes.
please be short because we have 5 minutes and people are hungry, starving.
I have two questions. Imam dve kratke prašanja.
I have two short questions. One is for the ambassador and the other one is for Mr. Ahmeti. Ms. Ambassador, my question is brief. Let's say that, okay, we'll resolve the issue with Bulgaria whenever we do so, in whichever way we do it. What is the guarantee from the European Union that the Republic of North Macedonia truly will be able to walk the European path and access the EU, and whether we will have additional requirements or conditions or not? Because we are losing faith in the judiciary system, and there is data of growing corruption. So that's a brief question for the ambassador. Well, for Mr. Ahmeti, my question is, Mr. Ahmeti, we are now expecting to wind up all of the processes towards the European Union, but amongst Albanians there is a question that is not answered. These 20%, this is not something that is agreed upon by all Albanian parties. Isn't now the time to work this out, and will there be a solution for this?
I'm happy to be very... I can do with one sentence. No, because a lot of the issues is for here to resolve. But from the European Union, we have made it very, very, very clear. What is needed for the moment is the vote on the constitutional amendments here in North Macedonia. It's needed to get the process going even faster, even more efficient. And that is a guarantee you have out there.
Okay, well,
I cannot tell you what happens left, right,
I
and
have to
center, but it's
confess
that
that when I
direction
saw
that
the
is now
title
needed. And there
of
the
this,
timing is very
panel,
important, not to
skills
wait
providing
too long,
opportunities,
but
strategies for
actually
tackling
find
the brain
an agreement, a
drain. I
political
thought, oh,
agreement
there's going to
around
be
the
a big
amendments,
risk
and from
that
there,
this is going to
North
be an
Macedonia
exercise in
will
gloom.
proceed, I hope, very,
But
very
in fact,
quickly.
we saw exactly the opposite. Really eloquent, really articulate people coming up, making the case for
Una
investment in this country in the Western Balkans, and for really driving change. And I'm really impressed. My only regret is that we don't broadcast this on CTEL or on MRT or on the main channel here. So the whole
We are model for the intercommunication, and this issue shall not be used for the daily politics. We discussed with VMRO and also with SDS about this question, but at this moment it is an issue to decide and to deal with the change of the constitution, and to have a success in completing of this change. And this is the issue of the time. %20 is not risking the percent of the Ohrid agreement. This is not jeopardizing at all. If it's going to be the 20% or more, the substance cannot be changed by the name. We decided for the constitutional changes in the country and all the investments in that direction we are dedicated to happen. Today is a moment to make constitutional changes and to continue our road toward accessing the EU.
issue of brain drain and providing an environment whereby people feel that they can make their home where their home originally was. And there's also, but there are economics. And big figure I always think of for North Macedonia.
I think we can call it a day. It's anyway very ambitious to have such a meaningful discussion in such a short time.
150 million.
Very much everyone for attending. It's a great pleasure.
So it's a huge magnet. And
let me invite you to a lunch and dinner to celebrate the 5th anniversary.
And can contribute to. At the moment, the living standards, though, here, 41.5% of the average of the 27 EU member states. So the question is, how can that be? How can living standards be boosted so competitive within the European Union? That's a key issue, as we've seen with countries like Bulgaria, where we're starting to see the reversal of the brain drain as living standards rise. There's also another issue in North Macedonia. Productivity, by comparison with the European Union, is 16%, 16%. So there's a huge scope and need for investment,